Hi guys, and welcome to part 9 of my Ring review series, 9 of 14. So we're slowly getting there. There probably will be spoilers today, I imagine, and the other thing to say is that you'll find all my other Ring reviews in my Ring playlist. So this one is a little bit of a change of pace for this franchise. It feels like we're modernising things a little bit with this entry. All the films before this, they all feel like roughly the same kind of slow-moving, investigative, thriller/horror type films, but this one, we've got a college setting, everything's very colourful and fast-moving, all the kids have got the latest iPhones and phones and what have you. It just feels very different. It reminded me of when I was doing my Howling review series and I came to the film Howling New Moon Rising, another film which felt like it had done away with the old ways of making Howling movies and just tried to bring you forward to the present day kind of a thing, albeit Sadako 3D is a much better film than Howling New Moon Rising. The beginning of this, I instantly got different vibes. Like, so you see a guy throwing a woman down a well, and at first I thought, oh god, not another flashback of Sadako being chucked down the damn well. But it turns out I was wrong, because the camera cuts down and we see that there's a whole bunch of bodies at the bottom of the well, and I thought, oh, I was wrong, what's going on here then? Turns out that this guy is offering lots of dead bodies to Sadako in the hopes that she will find the perfect vessel among them to return to the world or something like that. It's a bit out there, this plot, but it reminded me of the beginning of Resident Evil Extinction, when you see all those clones in the pit, but that's another film which feels like a very modernised entry in its canon. Something else that's different about this film, other than the fact that we're now using the word Sadako in the title and not Ring, I kind of like that actually. So the MO of Sadako has also changed here. So in the past, how it works is you watch the tape and then 7 days later you will die. Well, they've done away from that. They've done away with that. I guess they thought that it was just too slow for modern audiences, the idea that somebody gets a 7-day window to try and save themselves. So how it works now is you watch the videotape and then Sadako will instantly attack you out of the screen. Straight away, you're dead. But I've got a massive problem with this, really, because it just takes away one of the key characteristics of this series. I mean, if you're going to do this and allow Sadako to kill people straight away, you're just turning it into Candyman. You know, Candyman, you say his name 5 times in a mirror and instantly he pops up. Well, now Ring is the same thing. You watch the videotape and straight away Sadako pops up. You might as well just have it that you can just say Sadako's name 5 times in a mirror and she'll pop up, right? I didn't notice anything interesting when it comes to the 3D aspect of this movie. Obviously, you'll tell by the title that this is meant to be in 3D. I noticed little traces of where 3D moments would have been, you know, like Sadako popping out of the screen and stuff like that. But on the whole, my viewing wasn't affected by the fact that I was only watching this on a flat screen TV. Is there any way to even watch this film in 3D anymore? I doubt it. Maybe in Japan they've got the tech at home to allow you to do that, but for me, I had a few moments here and there where I noticed this and that, but on the whole, the experience of watching this film is like watching Jaws 3D or Friday the 13th 3D. You will spot the occasional shark or yo-yo that looks a bit out of place, but these are only fleeting moments. Every half an hour or so you might see an attempt at a 3D effect. This film was directed by Tsutomu Hanabusa. You might remember him from Go Schoolboys Drama Club and Keep Your Hands Off, Azuken. What a name for a film that is. I mean, I'm guessing this Azuken has wandering hands that get him into trouble, possibly. I'm only going to name one actress who was in this because she plays the main final girl. Her name is Satomi Ishihara. You might remember her from Bebop High School and Bebop High School 2, but I sound like I'm jesting, but she's genuinely pretty good in this, I've got to say. However, you will quickly lose patience with how often she says the word Takahori. I mean, she says it so many times in this. So she's got a boyfriend, or possibly it's just a friend. Their relationship is not very well defined. But in the second half of the film, she has to rescue him from some kind of dream world, and she's constantly saying, Takahori! Takahori! And honestly, it's as baked into this film as the Delta Force theme tune is in Delta Force. You will hear it so often. I challenge you to take a shot every time you hear the word Takahori in the second half of this film. I promise you, you will be absolutely paralytic come the end of it. This character, I can't remember her name. She's got a superpower where, so basically she can, if she screams really loud, she can shatter windows and also hurt any people or monsters who just happen to be around. But I don't like it when protagonists get powers. I prefer final girls, final boys to just defeat the villains with their own wits. You know, I want to see the human spirit tested. I don't want to see people just having powers and, you know, combating the evil that way. It's why Friday Part 7 is not one of my favourite Friday films. I don't care about this character who has telekinesis. I want to see just normal women taking Jason on, you know. We get a flashback in this where we see how this girl got her power. So it was a day where a knife-wielding maniac came into the school and started threatening all the kids. And the girl uses the power to shatter the windows and take down the knifeman at the same time. In Japan, they will have scenes like this in their films and they're not bothered. In America, you probably won't see these types of scenes as much because obviously there have been school shootings and things, and you know, they just don't want to offend anybody by having similar types of scenes in movies. But in Japan, they're not bothered. I mean, they've got that film Battle Royale, which the Americans have never remade, and I've seen other films as well where big groups of kids are threatened in different ways inside school classrooms. The Japanese are quite happy to just do that sort of thing, and we get something like that here. But I couldn't properly get into the terror of this situation with the knife guy because they've just made him look so stupid. Like, he's got this tiny little knife. He's dressed like a beggar who lives under a motorway. And the look on his face, he's like, I'm just thinking, you look pathetic. Like, a teacher could just come out of the classroom and take this guy down without the need of any kind of superpower. But hey-ho. But the flashback is not just to show us how the power was first discovered. It's also to show us a little bit of the origin of the relationship between the two main characters. How Takanori and this girl, you know, came to sort of have mutual respect for each other, that kind of thing. But the character of Takanori ruins probably the best moment in the film. So there's a moment where this young couple, if that's what they are, they're running away from Sadako, and they end up going into the street, and there's like a shop with lots of TVs in it, and Sadako appears on there, so they've got to keep running, and then they come across a truck with an advertising screen on it, and Sadako appears on there. So it starts feeling a little bit like one of Freddy's Kills, where he can manipulate the environment to just appear here, there, and everywhere. It's very good how this is done in this film. And then Takanori is dragged into the advertising screen, and that's the end of it. Good kill, well done, on we go. Except Takanori is not dead. He's been taken to some kind of purgatory where eventually he can be rescued by his girlfriend. And I'm just thinking, no, don't do that. This film just feels like it's making stuff up at times as it's going along. And you'll see this in badly written supernatural and fantasy where they can just pull deus ex machinas out of nowhere because it's a film with magic and supernatural stuff and we can change this and that to serve the purposes of the main characters. It was much worse in the American version of Ring 2, to be fair, but it also creeps into this film as well, and it just pisses me off. There are some cool sort of Sadako creatures that turn up in the final act. They attack the final girl in some kind of abandoned shopping mall. So all those dead bodies I was talking about earlier, they kind of reanimate as like Sadako zombies, but they're crawling around on all fours. But this gives us a good bit of action and horror towards the end. I kind of enjoyed these sequences for the most part. Although the way that the final girl kills these things is not very satisfying. So she stabs some of them, for example, but we don't see like blood and guts coming out of these things. I guess they didn't have the money for that kind of thing. So what they've done instead is just have the dead creatures fade away to CGI embers kind of a thing, and it looks a little bit naff, in all honesty. Another big no-no towards the end is Sadako actually standing up and talking like a real character. I was critical about one of the previous Ring films for doing this. I can't remember which one it was, but I don't like this character talking unless it's a prequel like Ring Zero Birthday. That's fine with having a talking Sadako, but any film that's doing Sadako, where she's reached the point where she's a supernatural being. You shouldn't have her be talking at the camera by that point. It makes no more sense to have a talking Sadako in this series than it does having a talking Michael Myers at the end of Rob Zombie's Halloween. It's just not something I want to see. But I will finish with a positive, which would be the secondary villain that you get in this film. So the guy who throws the women down the well near the start, he actually dies not long after, because when he's making his version of the cursed videotape that ends up on the internet, he actually dies during the process. So we never really find out too much about this guy. It's sort of hinted that he was an artist who went slightly bonkers, but we never find out anything about his motives or what he was about. But I like that. I like the fact that he's kept a mystery. I don't know if they bring him back for the film after this, but for now, I just like what they've done with the character. A bad way to have written this film would have been to have had this guy survive the opening stages and then turn up near the end chatting away like the Riddler, and then Sadako would kill him, because, you know, how often have we seen somebody attempt to become like the lieutenant to the main villain but then get killed by their troubles? I've seen that so many times in films, and it's kind of lame. On the whole, I only sort of liked this film, to be honest. It's one that I was just happy to get through. You know, I think most people will only really enjoy this if they are super big Ring fans, or they just happen to be a YouTuber who has locked themselves into doing a full review series. I fall into the second camp, if you haven't already guessed. It didn't help that I had to watch a really dodgy version of this online. So you can't find this on a disc in the West. You can't rent it. The only way to watch it, certainly in my country, is to watch it on YouTube. There are a few different versions you can find, but most of them are too blurry. There's one pretty clean looking version. The trouble is that it's in German dubs with English subtitles, and it's really awkward to get used to when you first put it on. So you've got these Japanese actors and actresses all speaking in German, and it's the weirdest thing. It's like two completely different cultures mixing in front of your eyes, and it's not right. It just isn't. And I was also having to deal with the subtitles as well. These subtitles were not made especially for the film. They were YouTube's own subtitles, which are a little bit amateurish, and they don't always sync up with what's going off on the screen. So I had a bit of a slow start to this film while my brain adjusted to all this, and the start of the film is not written that well anyway. The first 15-20 minutes were sort of bouncing around from different characters, and random things are happening, and the film's not too good at getting you into the film. I've made this same complaint about some of the other Japanese-made Ring films. They don't always get going very well, but hey-ho. So shall we get to the Bag of Terror and give a score for this? I think we shall. So we got 1, 2, 2.5 bloody axes out of 5, an average sort of film. It's okay, but I probably won't be going back to it. After this, we will be moving on to Sadako 2 3D, or would it be Sadako 3D 2? It only came out a year after this one, I think, so I'm expecting a film that's probably going to be aligned with the first one. It'll probably be similar in tone and feel, I guess. Maybe it'll have some of the same characters. Oh God, hope it's not going to have that same girl going Takahori all the way through it. I can't be doing with any of that. It's probably going to be a hard film to track down. So at the start of this review series, I did dip my toe in the water of the internet to find out if I could even track down a lot of these films. When it came to Sadako 2, I think I found it on some random streaming site. It's even harder to get hold of than the first one, because the second one's not even on YouTube. But I found it, I think, on a really random site, but it took me about half an hour. I'd almost given up. The thing is, though, I didn't write the link down, so I'm going to have to go through that same hunt again to try and find Sadako 2. But I know it's on the internet somewhere. I found it once. Hopefully I can find it again. Hopefully you will see the review pop up, but that's for another day. For now, it's time to wrap up. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.